call this meeting of Rising Sun Mayor Commissioners to order for March 29th, 2018 at 7 p.m. Calvin, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Braun,
Here.
Commissioner Pearson,
Here.
Commissioner Warnick,
Present.
Vice Mayor Arthurreath.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all of the elected body, with the exception of the mayor, is in attendance.
Okay, can we stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we observe a moment of silence tonight and remember the families of the little girl down in Southern Maryland, the most recent victim of the school shootings? Okay, we'll continue on. Executive session report from our March 13th, 2018 meeting.
The mayor and commissioners of the elected body met on March 13th, 2018 at 8:03 on the second floor of the town hall. Commissioner Arthurreath, Commissioner Braun, Commissioner Pearson, and Commissioner Warnick were in attendance. A motion to hold an executive session was made by Commissioner Pearson, seconded by Commissioner Braun. That passed 3-0. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss personnel. The persons in attendance at the meeting was Calvin A. Vonenberger Jr. in addition to the elected body. There were no action items taken. Motion was made by Commissioner Braun, seconded by Commissioner Arthurreath to leave executive session. That vote passed 3-0. A motion was made by Commissioner Pearson, seconded by Commissioner Warnick to adjourn the meeting. That motion passed 3-0, and the meeting was adjourned at 10:15 p.m.
Okay, thank you, Calvin. Do we have any public presentation? Anybody here tonight to speak? Yes. Can you come forward and state your name and where you're from? And
Hello, my name is Teresa Gilbert, and I am a town resident of 22 years, and I'm here on concern of our water rates. Like I said, we've been here for 22 years, and we had since I think it's about 2009, 2010. I may be wrong on the dates, but we had our water rates have tripled since then. We averaged about $150 a quarter. Now we are at $188.64 a month, which makes it $565.92 a quarter. I questioned because I thought like 2016, 2017, 2018, somewhere around there, our rates were going to be done with the hike. So I called Mr. Braunberger, and he emailed me the new water sewer rate table. By 2026, we will be paying, if our current rates, if we use the same amount of water, we'll be paying $345.68 a month, $1,037.04 a quarter. We have lost in property value significantly if we were to sell now. But my question is, and I know there is works for us to, to the town to profit and to start reaping an income from this, and hopefully our rates go down. My question is exactly what are the plans, and why should residents like us not sell? Why should we stay in Rising Sun? Like I said, in 2026, if we stay, we'll be paying $1,037 every 3 months for water. That does not count our trash that we have to pay, which is now in our mortgage, plus extra town taxes.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, business meeting items. Town Administrator, you have Resolution 2018-01, or fiscal year 2019 tax rate freeze.
Yes, let me just bring it up on the screen so the residents can follow along. While this is loading, it's important to note that this is not a resolution that is up for adoption tonight. This is part of the conversations that the elected body has given me in reference to the real estate tax rate for 2019. Generally speaking, the intent is to not raise the real estate tax rate for 2019. Although we have not, we have only started the budget for 2019 internally on a staff level, as we have done in the past. We still feel confident that we can continue to maintain the level of services that are provided without having to raise the tax. Before I get into the actual document, I think it's also very important to note that from a business standpoint, when you balance a budget, as we talked about before, just like a household, it's very important to have a certain amount of money in reserve, rainy day fund, whatever you want to call it, in the event of emergencies. And it's generally understood that a municipal government should have about 1.5 years worth of revenue in reserve to offset any rainy day issues. We've talked about this before. If you remember when we had the massive sinkholes up on Ryan Drive, that unexpected rainy day cost was well over $500,000 just to fix that water line breaking up there. So when you start to think about 1.5 years worth of money in reserve, that's the reason why they recommend municipal governments do that. What I think is, again, important for people to understand is that when the town of Rising Sun balances its budget on roughly about $2.5 million to operate the general fund, and the general fund is what provides the police protection, the public works, the streets and sidewalks, the trash collection, all of that. That roughly $2 million general fund, we balance that every year with about a $4,000 to $15,000 surplus at the end of the year. Nowhere near even being able to build up 1.5 years of reserve funds. So we have been at a disadvantage for a long time here in the town of Rising Sun, and I have some graphics that I'll show. We've looked at the graphics before, but yet we balance the budget with essentially pennies in reserve, and that's, when you really think about it, that really is pretty remarkable that the town has been able to do that, and I'll show the graphics in a second that show you why that is significant. But this real estate tax rate resolution that you have is a resolution that we will pass at a later date that will basically keep the tax rate where it's at right now. So I'll just go through we have the standard boilerplate at the beginning of the document here. And whereas Chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Rising Sun, titled Finance, Taxation, Business, and Trade, contains provisions that grant the Board of Commissioners with the power to appropriate municipal monies for any purpose with the powers of the council, and to levy, assess, and collect ad valorem property taxes or any of the type of tax allowed by law, and to have general management and control of the finances of the town. And whereas the town has received notice from the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation that the final taxable net assessable real property base for the town of Rising Sun will increase by roughly $2,269,991, which will result in a projected increase of revenue for the 2019 fiscal year of roughly $10,896. So essentially that means when they do the assessment on the properties throughout the community, they, excuse me, they only went up enough to generate another $10,000 of revenue.
Calvin, you
for-
have increase in there twice. You actually said increase by 2 million. And then,
I'm showing the increase of the total assessed value of all properties. And then I'm showing the increase
I got you.
of the
Okay.
revenue that's generated out
Okay.
of that. So basically, of all of our 900 properties, the total assessed value of all 900 properties went up by $2 million. That results in our tax rate in increased tax revenue to use for services of $10,000. So whereas, although the town has experienced over $50 million of lost property value over the past 12 years, resulting in hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost tax revenue to pay for town services, the mayor and commissioners have established a simple financial management profile of making investments in key infrastructure, equipment, and economic development while holding the line on expenses and cutting costs without sacrificing services to the residents. And whereas this financial management profile places a much higher value in reinvesting wisely in the community, repealing the sewer and water moratorium, and showing patience to allow the fruits of the efforts to grow over time. And whereas the residents of the town of Rising Sun have the second lowest tax burden per resident in Cecil County, and the mayor and commissioners will continue their commitment to keeping expenses for our residents as low as possible while maintaining the town's financial position and preserving town services as much as possible. Therefore, the town will maintain the current tax rate of .048 for each $100 of assessed value for the 2018 fiscal year. Therefore, be it further resolved that the mayor and commissioners of the town of Rising Sun pass, approved, and adopted this resolution on the 10th day of April. So as you can see, that is set up to be under consideration and adopted at the next meeting. We just wanted to start talking about it ahead of time. But I want to show you the graphics that are relevant to this. So what this is showing here, and let me enlarge it a little bit for you. Okay, come on. Is in 2015, the value of all of the properties in the town of Rising Sun was assessed at $188,990,052. The state is projecting that as of July 1st of 2018, the net assessable real property value will be $188,839,003. That's a net change of $2,269,991 of assessed value of all of the properties. That is an increase from last year of 1.2%. And I'm going to show you in the next graphic, over the last couple of years, that value has been dropping and dropping and dropping. So these are the calculations here under the tax rate of where you come up with the increase in revenue being $10,896. So when you look at, and anyone who's come to our budget meetings in the past recalls this information that I'm presenting, because it's something that we've been tracking for a while here. The town of Rising Sun in 2010 was at the apex of its assessed values of all properties. In other words, the 901 properties, assessable, taxable properties in the town of Rising Sun, had a total assessed value of $236,170,020. As you can see over the years, the decreases that have occurred, these are in millions. A year later, we lost 39 million. We lost 384,000, 344, 7 million. You can see where it's been fluctuating up and down here. You can see the percentage of decreases each year, and then you can see the town of Rising Sun had $959,323 of real estate taxes in order to provide the services that the town offers. So when you're looking at that, you're using that money to pay for your police department, your public works, to pave your streets, to fix potholes, to plow snow, cut grass, maintain the parks. All of those quality of life issues are paid for by those funds. But what you can see is in some years in the past, the town, in 1 year, they lost $161,000 of just tax revenue coming in. And you can see what's happened over the years, which culminated in this year. We're at least looking to project $912,092.28. But I want you to hold your thought on that one because there's an asterisk that needs to go next to that. So when you look at the total loss of property value in the town of Rising Sun, from 2010 to 2018, the town has lost $47,331,017 of assessed value. That is a loss of $47,230 of revenue to be able to use to provide the services there. That is a reduction on the total property value of 20.04% of lost value. And if you adjust that for inflation over that period of time, which the cumulative inflation has been 14.2%, the town has actually lost $54 million of property value since 2010. That takes our number of lost value from $47,000 to $53,937 of lost real estate tax revenue. But why I told you to hold that thought is, as you know, in 2016, the trends were getting so bad that the town had to do something, and they did raise their taxes 8 pennies on 8 pennies for $100 of value. If they had not raised the taxes, the town would be operating at $230,000 less dollars than it was in 2010. Those are significant losses of revenue to be able to provide the services. The town of Rising Sun is not in a vacuum by itself. The town of Rising Sun is the residents of the community, and the residents of the community are the town of Rising Sun. And what I mean by that is these percentages that we're talking about translate into the fact that a home in 2010 that was assessed at $200,000 is now hypothetically lost $68,000 of value from 2010 to now. And we've talked about this before, that we recognize that the home value is that leverage that our residents have to do things in life. Most often, homeowners rely on the equity of their home to get the money to pay for a wedding, to pay for a new child being born, put an addition on their house, send somebody to school, college, whatever. We recognize that. So this issue of declining property values is everybody's issue here. When I talked about what that translates is when you look at the other communities in Cecil County, and you look at Chesapeake City, the town of Port Deposit, the town of Elkton, the town of Northeast, the town of Charlestown, the town of Perryville, the town of Rising Sun, and the town of Cecilton. If you look at their census, their populations based on 2010 census, that's the population of those respective communities. These are the assess property values of those communities over that period of time. When you divide the total value of the properties by the population, that means that the value per person, for instance, in Chesapeake City, is $120,866 of value on each one of the properties per person. The town of Rising Sun is at $65,774. When you look at the tax rate that we are right now, and this 906 represents what we are projected to bring in revenue in 2008, when you divide that number, which is the amount of money, 906 is the amount of money that our residents are paying in taxes to the town of Rising Sun. When you divide that by the number of people in the town of Rising Sun, that comes out to $315.72 per person to provide the services. When you look at that compared to other communities, you see Chesapeake City at $552, $512, $414, $399, $374, $320, and the only community that has a lower tax rate per person is the town of Cecilton. That's why I make the statement that our residents have the second lowest tax burden in Cecil County based upon population and taxes that are paid. What's significant about this is, if you remember earlier when I talked about the general fund providing services, all of these communities provide those services for the most part, with the exceptions of the blue shaded areas are the communities that have their own police protection. In other words, their real estate tax pays for that police protection. So those two communities pay for police protection. The orange looking color, they also provide their own police protection, being town of Elkton and the town of Rising Sun. But the orange represents communities that provide their own police protection and their own code enforcement. So the point that I'm making here is that when you look at the level of services that are provided to our residents, the town of Rising Sun is one of only two communities that provides its own police protection and code enforcement, but it's doing it at $315.72 per person. My point in all this is that it has been extremely difficult over the last 12 years to be able to provide these services. There haven't been cuts in services over that time, even though you can see what we're working with in terms of the real estate tax that's collected. I think it's a remarkable accomplishment to be able to do that. Now, the reason why these values are depressed is because of the sewer and water moratorium. While other communities had enough sewer and water capacity for investors to invest in those communities, to open a new restaurant, to be willing to spend a lot of money to expand their business, is because the community had working sewer and water. We have not, and that is a direct correlation. Being in a sewer and water moratorium is a direct correlation to us basically choking over the last couple of years at trying to maintain services. Unfortunately, the only way to get out of this hole, which is what this is talking about, is to invest. So we've invested in economic development, we've invested in infrastructure, we've invested in these things, and now the business model that you guys set forth to do is to sit back and allow the fruits to grow themselves instead of raising taxes. We're not going to tax our way out of this economic stagnation. It's not going to work. We need to reinvest, and that's what we're doing in the sewer and water. Unfortunately, to do the investments was $26 million. There's no way to get around it. When we go to the state of Maryland, and we go to the U.S. government to try to get assistance. We got $2 million, actually, let me correct myself, we got about $3.5 million of grant money to be paid towards $26 million of infrastructure financing. So again, when people are frustrated by the sewer and water rates, is because you're now taking roughly $22 million and dividing it by roughly 1,000 metered locations. To answer the question that came up, is that the reason why the rates are so high is just like if you wanted to get a home equity loan on your home, the bank is not going to give you that home equity loan until they come and assess your property to see what the value is of it, so that if you don't make your payments on it, they have some value in the home to be able to foreclose on it. Another example is if you're trying to open up a business and you want to open up a business, the coffee shop right across the street is a good example. In order to get the financing to do it, they have to have a business plan, and they have to go to a lending institution that says, we know that we can sell so many cups of coffee and so many bagels and so many donuts, and that's going to generate this amount of money, and we'll be able to pay off the loan that you are giving to us. That's what our sewer and water rates are. We can't go in to the bank and ask for $22 million of financing and say, yeah, we'll pay it back. They want to know how. And the only way we could do that was to pass resolutions that say, this is the commitment to what the sewer and water rates are going to be. And as much as they are set in stone from the perspective of the lending institutions to make them happy, they're not necessarily set in stone in what we are doing. Example, last year, this board voted not to raise the sewer and water rates last January because that business model that we're talking about of being patient, don't overreact, don't think you're going to tax your way out of it. So they decided not to raise the water and sewer rate to see how the finances settle out another year. Those rates are shown on paper being that high, but the investments that we made hopefully will bring these real estate property values up so that we have new people getting into our family of homes, our family of businesses, new developments, new opportunities, more people paying taxes to spread the burden across the table. It's the same with the sewer and water. The more users in the system, the more people paying, the more we can flatline those rates in the future. Let me just close with saying, nobody sitting in this room, I've been here for 11 years, no one has ever voted on any of those sewer and water rates saying, this is great. No one has ever done that, but we don't have any other alternative. And the best we can do is reinvest in the system and allow the fruits to generate and then reap the benefits of those fruits. So I hope that answers some of the questions and also, gives a little snapshot into the mindset of the elected body of how they're trying to dig this community out of this hole that's been here for 15, 20 years now. So thank you.
Calvin, another thing worth noting is of that 2.3 million increase, roughly, just shy of 2.3 million, a little over 1.3 is due to an annexation. It's not actually on the backs of existing taxpayers.
Yes.
It's an additional, so it's the first time in 12 years that we've added a taxable property to the town of Rising Sun?
Yes.
Or no,
Yeah.
I guess 11 years.
Yeah.
So about 11 or 10 years, something like that. It's the first time in a little over a decade that a taxable property's been added to the town of Rising Sun. So that starts to show like the things we're doing. In addition, with that, they paid impact fees to the tune of
$58,000.
I would say around $58,000, most of which went to the water and sewer, which was part of what helped us not have to increase fees. On that note, the economic development that we're looking at, the economic growth within the town, as those impact fees are paid in, it can help us continue to defer those fees
May I add
or those
something?
rates.
Since to help ease your fear maybe a little bit, okay, and give you some history. I've also been around for the last 11 years, okay, and we were faced with this. I don't know how much you know about the true history of how we got to this point.
We do. Like I
Okay.
said, we've been here for 22 years.
Then you know that we were forced to build a sewer plant. Okay. Hmm?
The town was sued by when they annexed the property across Route 1.
That and the state was
The state sued us and put us under because our discharge was not meeting EPA standards, okay? So that started this whole ball of wax. And the moratorium is what has really hurt us. There's been no revenue coming in other than what we have here. Hopefully, in the next couple of years, this is going to be a very vibrant time. Money is becoming freer from banks, and hopefully people will be redeveloping. We have property,
And we're already starting to see some of that.
yeah,
Across the street, we've already got, at least 2 buildings have already, they're making pretty good progress on redeveloping those 2 buildings. We have some interest in some other buildings in town, of property owners that are interested in selling and buyers that are interested in economic development. So, all those things work together. The idea of having increased economic opportunities within the town will attract additional businesses, will attract additional residents. So there's a lot of things that are starting to go into motion now that they can, because we're close to being off the water and sewer moratorium. So those things combined, the growth of the town. Look, the sewer plant at its current rate is not really, whether you put 100,000 gallons or 200,000 gallons or 300,000 gallons a day of sewage in there, your operating cost is roughly the same, right? Maybe a little more in the way of chemicals and such, but for the most part, we're paying the same amount to operate it. If we can double the usage of that sewer plant, then, start to get closer to an optimal level. Matter of fact, I think we actually had to spend some money this winter to keep it operating efficiently due to
Because of the cold weather, it killed the bugs, the bacteria.
because we didn't have enough discharge going into the sewer plant. So if we can get closer to the capacity of the plant, then it will, the operating costs will stay about the same, or maybe even potentially, in this case, in that case, a little bit lower in some ways and higher in others. But the operating costs will remain about the same, but we'll have twice as much revenue coming in, and that revenue would be the thing that would help us avoid increasing the rates. But because of the situation, basically, I work in banking, and it's no different than if you're going out to buy an auto loan or a house or whatever. If you can't show the income to justify the payment, they're not going to let you take the loan, right? If I go out and I want to buy a Maserati, but I work at McDonald's, yeah. So the simple reality is we couldn't show the income to justify the loan payment. So we had to put in place a rate schedule that would show that income. Now, I actually kind of think that it's sort of silly to think that you're going to double the revenue by doubling the rates, because we all know that the reality is people will start to find more efficient ways to utilize less water, right? They'll look for low flow toilets and low flow shower heads and things like that. So if you double the rates, you're probably not going to see a doubling of the consumption, therefore doubling of the revenue. You're going to probably see it go up some, but realistically, people are going to start using a lot less water. So I don't know that that's necessarily, the reality is I think it's kind of foolish to think that would actually work, but that's how financing works. And we were able to get the financing to do it that way. Now our goal is to effectively, I know the optics of this isn't the best way to put it, but kind of grow our way out of the problem in a sense. The economic development, impact fees, additional subscribers on the system, all of those things. And our interest is in a large part in trying to bring in commercial subscribers, jobs, and subscribers of the water that would use a little bit more water and sewer, and provide jobs to the area, provide a higher tax base, and therefore overall lessen the burden of the town residents and the town revenues. So, but
The other thing too, when you were talking about your rates, all 4 of us, we're town residents, we pay them too. And knowing that we're gonna be going up, we're all like, we had to vote on that contract a year ago when we entered into this new water project. So we knew then what it was going to do. So we're not immune to the same numbers that you have there of your water rate. We do fortunately only charge for every 1,000 gallons. So if you can lower your consumption, of course you have some control, just like you lower the amount of running you do in your car, you lower your amount of gas you use. So there is some control over it there. But this board, including the mayor, we agreed we can't tax away. We're not going to tax away out of this. That's not the answer to it. How do we increase the value of properties in the town of Rising Sun? Of course, once your assessed value goes up, your tax bill is going to go up. So is mine, all four of us here. If our property value goes up, because I moved here in 2005, paid that high price and watched it plummet too, and still ain't back to what I paid, none of us. We are suffering from the highway user fund that were stolen from us years ago that helped us pay for the road work that got done. We don't have that anymore. But yeah, we're not going to raise the property tax this year. We're working to figure out how we can get the town growing to get more people, on the tax bills for the town. And we have people looking to come here. That's not scaring them away. We have, just like Dave was saying, across the street, the work that they're doing on the old Western Auto and the old Verizon store. They're putting a lot of money into that place. Up on Colonial Way, a business that moved out of a smaller place up there, now a karate school has come into that location. Down in Martin's Plaza, a hair salon moved out, and now we're seeing NLX Gym, No Limit Extreme Gym, who moved off Colonial Way into a bigger place, now is expanding into a property that was just vacated. So if you look around town, you don't really see any properties vacant except for a couple right across the street that have been neglected by the owners and let them deteriorate. But we have growth going on in the town. Commissioner Warnick and I have worked with the county this year to get property, the old railroad bed, donated to the town of Rising Sun to create a walking path, a Rails to Trails program, which there's a lot of grant money out there that Commissioner Warnick has been applying for that will help pay for that. And that raises the value of the town.
It also raises desirability.
The
it
desirability,
brings people
the
into the
quality
town.
of life in the town.
It helps, like restaurants, for example, that come to the town, it would help make sure that they're successful. I mean, there's.
So that's the
businesses.
direction we're going. We're trying to keep, that water rate is going to go up, but look around, it's happening everywhere. If you go out and decide to go out in the county and get on a well, you're I've been there and done that. You kind of roll the dice that you don't have a major aging problem, that all your pipes go up, your well pump goes up, or somebody near you did something to contaminate your well, because we've been seeing that. Or, we can only put so much sewage into the ground in septic tanks. A few years ago, they determined that there's only two types of septic systems, failing and failed. And they're on their way to failing once they're put in new. They don't last forever. The ground can only take so much of that discharge. So, like I said, I've said this over and over again, we feel the pain of every town resident, of every tax and thing that goes in place, every fee. We see it, we know how it affects us, and we figure, okay, it's got to be done. We need to buy equipment for the public works, the police department, in order to maintain the services that are going on. Recently, I reported on the cost of all the snowstorms and water main breaks we'd had this year and what that cost to fix. And that's expensive. And the service interruption was minimal. Our guys were out as soon as the snowstorms hit, plowing, salting, 12, 14, 16 hours, I would bet.
And they do an amazing job, and I'm not saying that just because of public works directors here.
Right. I mean, yeah, because, all you got to do is look around. Look how easy it is to get out. And then try to go into Delaware, after a snowstorm, right? So, we hear what you're saying. I'm not ignoring it, but that's the direction we're going. And Commissioner Pearson was water and sewer before. He's got history of what's going on, as he said, how we got here. Now, I can't answer for you why you should stay here or why you should not, but on my street alone, I've just seen 2 houses sell and 2 people move in. So it's saying that this is a good place to live. People still want to live here. You can't run away from the cost of living today anywhere. And we're hoping to make Rising Sun, a valuable place to have property, whether it be commercial or residential, and a good place to live. We got good schools, we got a good police department, we've got a good little town here. And we're trying to do our best to grow the value of this town instead of trying to tax our way out of it. That's not going to work. So we do plan, we had talked about that. Our plan is, no, we're not going to raise the property tax. If it does go up, I'm going to pay it too if I vote for that. The trash, the water, the sewer, everything. So,
Calvin?
did you have something?
Yes, I just, we've talked about this before, and right now, when you take a snapshot in time right now, sewer and water bills are very interesting to get your head wrapped around. And yes, we get poked in the eye because you only had to go back to, Lisa, refresh my memory, maybe 2008, it was like $3.10. That's when we made our first. Yeah, so we made some big jumps, and that shocked people because for years the town was not raising its rate. But when you look at a snapshot in time of the different communities, here is what they pay per 1,000 gallons of water. So you see $8.87, $4.16, $23.18, $6.17, $4.09, $7.81, and $9.25. Now the thing that's important to note here is this is not per gallon, this is per 1,000 gallons. So if the average user uses about 4,000 gallons, for the purposes of this model, we use 4,000 gallons. In the town of Rising Sun, we're tracking our residents using about 5,200 gallons a month as the average use. So when you just, for simple numbers, you take 4,000 gallons and divide it by 1,000, that's 4 increments. So if our rate is $1 more than another community, it costs you $4 more for that 1,000 gallons than in the other. It costs you $4 more for the usage for that month for the water. And I know people are opening up their bill and they're seeing $9.25 and they're seeing $10.38. But when you look at the other communities, it's not that out of line. But the other thing that the town did a couple of years ago was the other communities bill in minimum gallonage. In other words, whether you use it or not, you pay for it. And I don't have all the numbers up here, but there are some portions of the county where when you get your water from Artesian, you pay for 10,000 gallons whether you use it or not. Other communities, there's a couple that are 6,800, a couple that are 8,000, and numbers like that. We charge for 1,000 gallons, that's it. So if you're a senior on a fixed income or a small business in town that only has an employee bathroom and you're only using 1,500 gallons a month in water, you're paying the $23.68 in total for those 1,500 gallons of water. You're not paying for imaginary water that you can do in some other communities because they have a minimum amount. So those are the things that elected bodies have done in the past to try to soften this impact on our residents. But more importantly, it now gives the resident the opportunity to conserve the water. So imagine if you lived in another community that's going to charge you whether you use it or not. What's the incentive to save the water? You're paying for it anyway. In Rising Sun, you can control your own destiny. You can do the things that Commissioner Warnick talked about to bring your water rates down. And so if you look at it compared to the lowest monthly charge for someone who uses 1,000 gallons, and we're talking about seniors and stuff like that, it's the second lowest in the county if for lowest monthly charge. If you're an average user compared to the rest of the county, you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're 6 out of 9, but look at the dollar differences in total. You're 6 out of 9, but you're only $25.62 behind one of the other lower rates. So to what Commissioner Arthurleith was saying, the rates are high all over the place. The cost of water is incredibly expensive. It's expensive to produce, and the bad thing is sewer is even worse. Sewer, you got to take the water that was good at one point that's now bad, and you got to treat it. And there's a lot of money associated with that. So when you really look at a snapshot right now, we're not doing too bad. We have sticker shock because it's only 10 years ago. It was dirt cheap in the town of Rising Sun. But that's part of the reason why we're financing $23 million, because they never had the rates to build up any kind of reserve funds to pay for anything that ever needed to happen. Now, if we don't have any new connections and no new development as part of that fee schedule, we're going to be off the charts in 5-6 years. There's no doubt about it. But that's where we're putting our chips in the center of the table, and we're investing to try to control that in the future. So I just wanted to throw that out there also.
Yeah, I would just recommend, come to the meetings and see what we're doing and see what's happening, and, you know, so that it's not a sticker shock. Come in, don't just base it on that rate schedule you've seen, because we're doing as much as we possibly can to attract more users to come in. And we have seen an annexation, like you said, it was the first one in how many years, out at the dollar store. Businesses are filling in empty spaces in town.
It's the
so
first
they
new
don't-
taxpayer in quite a few years.
If it's any consolation to you, every month I hear it from my wife.
So the plan is to create revenue, and ideally this was just to satisfy the bank. But I shouldn't worry that my rate will be $1,037 quarterly.
If it is, we're all in deep trouble, man.
Because you won't be the only one.
I get this.
Yeah, I can't afford that.
This is very comparable, but when you
Yeah.
look at that,
Yeah.
you know,
And I will say, when we moved here, we were probably using about 7,000 gallons a month. And as the water rate started to increase, I hate to say this because it sounds weird. Like somebody will take the sound clip and I'll look like an idiot on the internet in a few days. But if you get like the low flow aerators for your sinks, I went from 2.2 gallons to 1 gallon a day, or 1 gallon a minute in the bathroom sinks. You get enough water to wash your hands, brush your teeth, things like that. It's more than enough. Matter of fact, at 2.2, it's like splashing in your face and stuff. 1.1, it's like the right flow, and I did 1.1 or 1.5 in our kitchen sink, so it still fills like things faster, so you can fill pots up and cook. I found shower heads at Home Depot. They were, I can't remember the brand offhand, but they were like 1.5 gallons versus 2.5. But they have about the same feel as the 2.5, which was important. You know, my wife would have been yelling at me if it didn't feel like a shower. And my kids, and I have 2 teenage daughters, so with their 20, 30-minute showers, I cringe a little bit, but I don't cringe as much if it was, 40% more water going down. So, that's 2 things that are relatively inexpensive. The aerators are $2 or $3 a piece. The shower heads are, probably $40-50. Even when it's extreme, as I've replaced some of the toilets with low flow toilets and the washer with a front loader, and we got our consumption down to like 4,000 gallons a month. So it is possible. And that's
And
without.
you gotta really cut back on watering lawns, washing cars.
I wash my car as much as anybody. You know that.
No, somebody else in our neighborhood does.
Okay,
but
that's
but
true.
those are just things we're throwing
Yeah.
out there. So, but all right, well let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's go on to staff reports. Commissioner Pearson, you have anything for the police tonight?
The chief said there's nothing of major importance. However, we have acquired a vehicle that is currently being painted. It is a Humvee that did not cost us anything. It's part of the program where the government is getting rid of their surplus. However, we all agreed we are not mounting a 50 caliber machine gun on the top.
Well,
of
you
it.
all agreed. I still think
It's strictly
Shoot candy in the parade. That's
exactly.
It's strictly for the purpose of being able to get through heavy snow and into spots. We've had a couple of chases where we couldn't get off the pavement because our vehicles were equipped to go off-road. This should give us the opportunity. And again, that's part of it didn't cost us.
And the painting's not costing, well, it's costing us a few dollars in materials like less than 10 because my dad's doing all the work. And my dad went through GM Body and Paint School, so it's, you know, I mean, he's got 40 plus years of painting experience, and, you know, I convinced him to come out of retirement for one more paint job. And, I think we've spent a total of about $8 on
You
paint.
know, the cost is virtually nothing for us.
I don't have anything really under Vice Mayor's report. Mayor Marion will be back in a couple of more weeks. He'll be back with us next month, and Commissioner Pearson, you have anything else under police at this time? You want to continue on?
We have the safety at the high school, I believe it is next Thursday
Fifth,
night.
I believe.
Yes, Thursday, a week from today. The chief and I both plan on attending. so-
I'll be there.
That's on the 5th,
Yeah,
so that's what?
at 6
that's the
p.m. at
5th.
Rising Sun
Yeah.
High School.
Okay. Commissioner Braun, you have anything?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Commissioner Warnick?
Well, I guess first, can we really quickly, town meeting schedule, budget meeting dates, we still need to agree on the next,
Can we do that afterwards downstairs? Because we got to redo the whole calendar, it sounds like.
yeah, and
so-
I'm not gonna be here the next,
So
I'll be in
anything on
Austin.
Parks and Rec we can do.
Okay.
you know, and then we'll do the meetings downstairs. 'cause
Okay,
Sounds like all that work we did on it, now I started messing it up, now everybody else is too.
Yeah.
so.
So Parks and Rec, I did put in for, and I got like a last minute notification from Delegate Hornberger Tuesday night, that that the county was submitting their TAP request, and that apparently the county's been submitting it for years without any sidewalk or trail monies or anything like that, and he got a hold of it and said, wait a minute, I know the town of Rising Sun's interested in this. So I had to scramble, and he contacted me. I scrambled and came up with some funding requests. Commissioner Braun, just to let you know, I put in for sidewalks from Maple Heights Lane to Sunoco there along the guardrail. I don't know if it'll get funded or not, but that was, being your streets and sidewalks. That was the only section of sidewalk I could think the town needed along a state highway. And there's a lot of pedestrian traffic through there in that little stretch of shoulder
Right.
between the white line and the guardrail. That's pretty dangerous, huh?
Sunoco.
From Sunoco to Maple Heights Lane, there's a lot of people that walk to Sunoco, especially at night.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of dangerous for all those people, so I thought that'd be a good place to, there's the only sidewalk request I could think of in town limits along a state highway. As far as the trails, we put in a request we got ambitious, and 1.5 million total for bridges, tunnel, under Hopewell, to do the whole thing, basically.
On the rails to trails.
Rails to trails
Yeah.
for to fund the entire project through that mechanism. I don't know if we'll get it, I don't know if maybe we'll get part of it, and we'll go to other mechanisms, but
Good start.
it's just one of those things, you put in the request, and if you get it, great, if you don't, you just go to the next. So we've got another grant we're filling out for Federal Rails to Trails Fund, as well as State Rails to Trails Fund, and then we'll MAPCO funds. So, we're looking at, and that some of those, some of the justifications we used in addition to the recreational use of it, there's actually the Rails to Trails will go past 2 low-income housing areas. One of those people walk from the Mushroom Lane apartments. They walk along Hopewell through the S-curve, down through the park, and then up to Martin's and McDonald's and stuff like that. It's a really dangerous stretch of road. There's been people killed along there. By getting the tunnel under Hopewell and the trail completed from Mushroom Lane to Martin's would actually create an alternative transportation method for those people that would be safe passages. So it's a public safety issue. Also, that same stretch, if there was ever a forest fire back in there or in certain sections of where that railroad trail goes through, there's very thick brush. It'd be hard to fight a fire. With that trail, it creates, so all those things we look at as, the public safety aspect of it, the recreational aspect, the ability for those residents in Maple Heights apartments to get into the center of town more easily. It creates a transportation corridor for a lot of people that actually don't historically have vehicles, or a lot of pedestrian traffic typically. So those are all things that we put in the justification. And so.
Do you still have the announcement for the what was it, fitness in the park?
I don't have that on me. He's still supposed to get me the final draft of it, but they're.
They were really excited that you talked about it at the last meeting.
Yep, so fitness in the park will start sometime, I believe, May or June timeframe. It'll be Tuesdays and Thursdays. I don't know, I think it's Tuesdays in Veterans Park and Thursdays at Richardson Park, or it might be the other way. I believe that's the dates. And a portion of the proceeds of that goes to the Rails to Trails. So, you know, we're looking for ways, creative ways of funding this.
And who's sponsoring this?
NLX Fitness is is putting that on.
It's really good.
So-
That business has really come a long way in how many, like 7 years they've been in town?
I don't even think it's been that long. I think it's like 4 or 5.
It's really good to see
Yeah.
that place grow,
They've been doing great, yes.
along with some other
So-
businesses.
And so we're you know, we've got a number of projects coming up as soon as the park dries out some. Glad we're starting to get some warmer weather. I believe Lisa went and brought back the current mud height on her shoe. It's about 1 inch apparently. And so we're probably a few more weeks away from being able to get any grading done down in Veterans Park. Once that grading's completed, from the open space grant from 2012, maybe it might even be older. It might have been like 2008 or something. The grant was originally issued, but the playground was built in Veterans Park around 2013, maybe. That open space grant, there was about $6,300 left of that for trails. We have put trails in that park. We had some wet areas to cross and had to deal with some wetlands permitting issues and things like that, but we got all that squared away through other projects. We were able to avoid paying the $5,000 in wetlands permits, which was great because we had another grant to do the stream bed restoration, so we avoided that, which allowed us to get all that built. We bought about $5,500 in lumber, something like that. You know, I took Ron down to load it all up, and he looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Why don't you just have them deliver it since they do it for $25?" And that's what we did. But we got a bridge and a boardwalk already built, but we have another 1 or 2 bridges scheduled to be built out in that area that's currently needs to be graded, as well as additional 2 boardwalks back in the woods. So we've got a lot of projects coming up this spring, and hopefully we'll have that whole setup done by this summer. Additionally, the 2 scouts building the boardwalk for the dog park to complete that section. They changed troops. They're now in troop 28. And so that, I guess, changed their timelines just a little bit. But hopefully this spring they can get started. They have to go, I believe they may have to go through some reapprovals because it's a different troop leader. But once they have all that squared away, then we hopefully will get some holes dug down there and get their footers in this spring. And then hopefully by this summer, maybe we'll have the boardwalk done from the end of the current bridge over to the learning platform, and on to the past that to the end where it transitions back to the ground. So we got a lot of good stuff going on. That's just a preview of some of the things. We've also Public Works Director Ron and I've talked about the redoing some of the parking lot areas with some new millings because of the Ecotone project created some of the parking lots a little muddier now than it was before they got started. They disturbed
Dog park or
at Veterans Park.
Park?
They disturbed some of the parking area
Right.
along there, and so it's been muddy. So we're gonna, you know, once the weather cooperates and warms up a little bit, and we can get the fresh millings down over there to get the parking lot dry again. So, but anyway.
All right.
Thank you.
We get close to wrapping things up. We're going to announce some upcoming meetings. Planning Commission workshop, Monday, April 2nd. That one's still good at 6:30 p.m. I'm going to kind of skip these couple of the town meetings because I think we have to readjust our schedule because the next one scheduled for Tuesday, April 10th. I think we also have a lack of a quorum issue we have to discuss. And then also our Thursday, April 12th budget meeting we may have to redo. Planning Commission comp plan open house, Monday, April 16th. Do we have a time on that?
I don't think we do.
Okay,
It has not been set yet.
okay. And then a town meeting scheduled for Tuesday, April 24th. It's hard to believe we're almost into April because just a week ago we were digging out of that snowstorm. And then today I was looking for shorts. Upcoming events, there's a school safety meeting Thursday, April the 5th, 6 p.m. at Rising Sun High School. We have the Tiger Trot 5K coming up Saturday, April 21st. Jim Boyd from the school puts a lot into that.
I'd like to add an event to this. On the following weekend, we actually, this year, we're not conflicting with Tiger Trot, so the following weekend is Veterans Park Project Clean Stream Park Cleanup.
After April
on
21st.
April 28th.
Okay.
So it's the following weekend.
April
I have that's scheduled, so we're all good
But
for that.
the one that's just a short distance away, and correct me if I'm wrong, Little League Opening Day and Parade,
This-
April 7th.
April 7th.
Yep, April 7th.
Everybody gonna be there? Lots of candy to throw out?
As soon as the chief goes and gets it.
That's not a problem. If we can throw it at Jane and Lisa, I'll supply it.
We should get some like jawbreakers.
And then, we were throwing lollipops at them last year.
Yeah.
That was not
We need to get like
intentional.
the real.
So unsafe.
We need to get the real big ones,
Well, what
like the ones that are like circles like that.
What would you
Just
like
two of
us
them.
Into the
to?
curb with a baseball bat.
We're gonna throw cotton candy at safe. So, and then, tomorrow, March 30th, Good Friday, Town Hall's closed. Everybody have a good Easter. Can I get a motion for an adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're done. Thanks, everyone, for coming.